Welcome to the Coach Speak podcast, built for coaches, by coaches, hosted by Jamie Bolton and Dustin Martin. Sponsored by Ray Crowther, providing the nation's best athletic training equipment since 1932. And R4 Football Systems. Accelerate everything by decoding the game.
Hey guys, welcome back to Coach Speak. Dustin Martin here with Jamie Bolton. Got a special guest tonight out of North Carolina, Weddington High School, Coach Andy Capone. But before we get going, want to shout out to our sponsors, Team Builder, Tsunami Bar Sports, and Pro Quick Draw.
Our guest today isn't just winning games. He's building a program that wins year after year across classifications, eras, and rosters. At Weddington High School, championship seasons aren't the exception, they're the expectation. Multiple state titles, double-digit wins, elite consistency. Coach Capone just notched his 100th win at Weddington. And over the last 9 seasons, Weddington has sketched elite records, 16-0, 15-1, 14-win seasons. He was recognized as the Carolina Panthers High School Coach of the Year. But what makes this episode special is we're not talking about scheme, we're talking about standards, what it really takes to build and maintain a championship culture. Let's get into it. Coach Andy Capone, welcome to the show.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate you guys having me on and, starting this thing up. So, bringing coaching and talking ball to people is awesome. And, I'm glad you guys asked me to come on.
Awesome, man. So when people hear championship culture, what do you think most coaches maybe misunderstand about that?
Yeah. We don't talk culture because I feel like if you have to talk it, then you don't have it. I don't know if that's right or wrong. That's something, but ever since I've been there, we've never really brought up the word culture. We're a hardworking group. We obviously have talented players, but our kids, our hardest workers, need to be our best players as well. So, one of the college coaches came in last week and kind of asked me what you feel like, your program does that makes you guys special. And I feel like it's kind of an old school, vibe with it. We have a small weight room, North Carolina is what it is. We don't have to get into that, but we got 9 racks. We use the hallways. We break, we've had our hallway floor replaced 3 times. But we just flat get after it. We coach them hard and we love them harder and all that. But, I think for us, like I said, we feel like we don't need to use the word culture and all that because I think the kids expect the standard to be what it is and to rise to it every year.
Sure. And I think it's a great point. If you're constantly harping on this is what our culture is, you're not really applying it. You're trying to say what you want it to be, but you're not actually executing what you want it to be. Weddington's Union County, isn't it, Coach?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Yeah, so because I was at Marvin Ridge for a couple months with Britt Leggett and Carter over there, and if it's how I'm thinking, that little weight room and they did things in the hallway as well, I totally get what you're talking about, man.
Weddington was built in 2001, and Marvin, Porter Ridge, Cuthbertson, it's the exact same layout. So yeah, you've been there. And,
I've seen it.
I was at Marvin for a year, so that's a tiny little.
You guys know exactly what we're talking about and dealing with there. So
yeah, man, and I think that's just it goes to show, man, you don't need all the fancy bells and whistles. Like they're nice and they're convenient, but Jamie's in the weight room he has now used to be a mini gym, and dude, it's like there's too much space in there almost. Like you could probably do 60,
they just keep
70
piling kids in there, man. It's like, hey, we got this big mini gym. Why don't we just have 80? Yeah, man, no problem. 3 different sports.
They do that for us too, but we still get the same space. So
exactly.
It'd be nice to have, but you can put work in no matter where.
Exactly. I love that, man. And I think that probably speaks volumes for your kids too. They kind of understand that. Like, it doesn't matter what the obstacle is. It doesn't matter what we're confronted with. We're going to be able to solve a problem and move forward and do it with the best effort and intentionality. I love that.
I just, if they can go through, hard work and what we make them go through in the weight room, then they're going to go through it, on the field, with each other. And that's something that they understand and we've talked about. And, it's good that we've had, people, our classes have been able to be mainly football first period now for the last 3 years. And I think that's made a huge difference for us of everyone getting in there, grinding together and just going through it instead of having them, spread out throughout the day and after school and all that stuff. So.
No, that's huge. That's a big part about it. Coach, you spoke on kind of what the standard at Weddington is. What do you think one of your standards is that people may, not think wow, I didn't realize Weddington tried to hang their hat on that standard.
Yeah, our goals every year are kind of simple. It's win the first game, win the conference, practice on Thanksgiving. And I've been there 13 years, and you take out the COVID spring when no one practiced in the fall on Thanksgiving. I've practiced every Thanksgiving, and I think that's something that we kind of hang our hat on. Is we don't want to be the first team to not come out at 8 a.m. and practice on Thanksgiving. So that's definitely something that we talk about. If you practice on Thanksgiving, you had a really good year. And it's hard, because our kids expect to be, at the state championship every year or close right there. And, when you lose in the regional finals 2 years in a row and, they don't want to have a banquet because they're like, why are we having a banquet? It wasn't, I was like, it's hard to win. And that's something that, I struggle with. I'm a horrible loser. I'm sure you guys are. I think it's part of the nature and all that. But, I think our kids have gotten to the point now and our community now is that they expect, if they're in town on Thanksgiving weekend to go watch a game. And, we've been fortunate enough to do that. So I think that's something that, we hang our hat on and, we talk about it, but we don't obviously, just focus on that. We try and focus on one game at a time, but, practicing on Thanksgiving has been something that our kids really want to do.
Yeah, and I think that we really wanted to get into this with you, but like handling success. Like, what are the dangers of success that maybe some young coaches don't see coming?
Yeah, it's really hard. It's really hard. And I got the job in 2018, and we were fortunate enough to win the state championship that year. And I remember Wayne Linneberg, who was at Wake Forest, he's at Rice now, came in, and I got to know him really well, obviously with the recruiting and stuff. And he's like, It's amazing what you did, but you're always going to be chasing." And I don't feel like there's no truer words have been spoken to me. And it's hard. I struggle with it. We've been in the regional finals for 4 straight years and fell short in 3 of them. And, it eats at me, but, I think for us and our kids, you kind of just have to peel back everything and realize everything, all the success that they've had, and winning is obviously important. Everybody wants to be at the top of the mountain and all that, but it's hard to do it. And if kids expect to be there, then they get complacent. If coaches expect to be there, you get complacent. So we're always looking to push. We're always looking to improve. And the kids have to understand, nothing's ever just going to be given to you. We're going to get
Yeah.
people's best shots. But with that, we expect to give everyone our best shot as well. And that's something that they've had to understand. There's a few games and you can go back to where we feel like we were the better team that we didn't win that game. And those are the ones that really hurt, but sometimes you just get beat. And it's hard, but I want the kids to understand the hard work and all that is, just because you're not at the top all the time or whatever, it doesn't take away from the success that you got, that they've had and that, they've continuously had. So.
This episode is brought to you by Tsunami Bar Sports. And if you haven't seen their oscillating bar in action yet, it's one of the most unique tools in performance training right now. Tsunami Bar uses patented flexible bar technology that creates oscillation through the lift, which means your athletes aren't just moving weight, they're having to stabilize, control, and produce force the whole rep. They even have a training library with hundreds of exercises and workouts, so you're not guessing how to plug the Tsunami bars into your program. If you want training stability, power, and intent, and give your athletes a new stimulus that translate, check out Tsunami Bar Sports and bring the oscillating bar training into your weight room. Sure. And it's funny, we had a speaker on, Dub Maddox, early on. I think it was like episode 4, man. And he talked about for every balcony, there's a basement that goes with that. And really it's like sustained success. The basement to that balcony is complacency, because when you continuously do it, that's an expectation, but you forget everything it took to get there. And that's kind of the reflection of that in the balcony basement. And like Coach, like, you said you've lost 3 out of the 4 regionals, but I mean, a lot of things. I think a lot of coaches don't realize that every team dynamic changes every single year because there's going to be some kids that graduate. It's just you don't stop it. But I think it's also important to realize like players make plays, but like that takes high level coaching because with the dynamic changing every single year, like it's hard just to get to the regional. You know what I mean? So I think
Mhm.
that's important to highlight as well. It's like you may have lost 3 of the 4, like you said, but there may have been years maybe you weren't even meant to get there and you did based off of heart and coaching. And I think that's such a huge piece on what you were saying.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
coach.
mean, we've had great players, and they listen to us most of the time, and you guys know that. But they're high school kids. There's days when their girlfriends are upset with them because they're scrolling Instagram instead of paying attention to them, or some girl looks at them in the hallway, or they
That's right.
like we're Weddington, and our kids are really highly academic, and if they make a B on a test, they might not be focused in on running plays on a Wednesday. So
Yeah.
it's always a challenge, and I'd rather have the challenge of continuing success than trying to figure out how to turn it around. But
Mhm.
I think people that haven't done it or aren't in there think that maintaining success and winning is easy, and
It's harder.
it's definitely not. So
Yeah, it's definitely harder, I think, too, just because, once you get to that quote unquote pinnacle, then everything starts over. People don't
Right.
realize that. Like, I think that's what Dustin's alluded to. How do you reset expectations each offseason?
yeah, every off season's different, and I know Dustin has just said that, but unfortunately in high school, in 4 years, people have to leave, and, you only get a certain amount of time with them. So, each team is different. Our core is going to stay the same, but, you have to adapt to who you have, and
Mhm.
there's years when we had, Will, who's playing in the NFL. And if I didn't handle the ball, then I'd be a really dumb coach. But there's just different ways that we do things, and we've had a good run of running backs, but we've progressed offensively with what we do, and we've progressed defensively with what we do. So, but each year when you come in, North Carolina for our Union County still likes to do their exams after Christmas break, which doesn't make sense anymore still. So, we really don't get cranked up till end of January, and then this ice apocalypse that we just had, we haven't been in. So, it's hard to get back in a rhythm, but you just got to tell the guy every year's different,
Mhm.
and no matter who comes in, leaves, well, all that, we just have to focus on us. And, off season, we don't do a lot of stuff outside. And we're trying to lift weights, speed and conditioning, agility, all that. And just kind of callous their minds and all that, and then making them better. So, hey, the success we've had in the past was great. A lot of you have been part of that team. A lot of you have been part of that. Um, but every year is going to be different. You're going to face different challenges, and every year you're going to look different. So.
Yeah. No, and I was curious on when y'all actually got ramped back up. I've been fortunate enough to be a part of one team that practiced Thanksgiving and beyond, but a lot of debate we hear all the time is like, when do you really ramp off-season weights back up when a season doesn't go as anticipated? If you lose the first or second round,
Yeah.
a lot of guys wait till after Thanksgiving, and some of them are even like, listen, we really don't get ramped up till after Christmas break because exams and everything. So it was cool to kind of hear what y'all do practicing and playing typically into November, December. So, Coach, I'm just curious. This is kind of off script, but what offensive mind? What do you think? As you're an offensive guy, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And what is your philosophy offensively? I know you have to adapt scheme to personnel, but like, what do you like to do? What's your favorite things offensively?
Yeah. Run the ball. I think when it gets cold, you gotta run the ball. And Jamie over there kind of smirks, so he might like to throw it more. And don't get me wrong, we throw it, but
No, man, I've watched y'all's film, man. I
I'm
I I really like what you guys do. I'm a big
we
11 personnel gap scheme guy.
we base 11. We base 11, and when you have a tight end H back that can do multiple things, it changes offense. And we'll get him some 12. We've got him some 13. But I love pulling. I love counter. I love formations. We're huge formationally. Sometimes
Sure.
we get into stuff without even knowing what we're doing. But we love gap scheme, power counter. We'll put in split zone on day one of spring install
Yeah.
or zone, and for inside zone. I just feel like it's easy enough in high school to where we can get it in 2 days and feel comfortable with it. But we're gonna pull. We're gonna be physical. We ask, we pull 3 guys sometimes, whether it's a slot receiver. We've pulled 4 in a game. We pulled 5 once. It didn't really work well, but we did it.
Yeah.
And all that. So misdirection, I think is important. And anytime you got a quarterback that can run a little bit, that obviously opens up your offense, and that's something that we've tried to build on as well. But you got to run the ball when it's late in the year. It
Yeah,
gets
well, Coach, honestly, that was kind of a baited question. So, like, I was with Marvin Ridge for about 4 or 5 months in the off season. Some things happened with the school I was working at. It was a weird situation, but I wasn't able to be there. But when I was going in as the DC, and I try to like chart all of the conference teams that we're going to play,
uh
and like I charted you, man. I was watching. I was like, man, that's some nasty 12 personnel stuff you were doing. Like, it was, man. So I kind of knew a little bit, but I wanted to hear kind of your philosophy behind it, man. It's we talk about it all the time on here with Zeb. Zeb's a big, 12 personnel guy too. And it's just when you can get the whole package going and you're able to run it, and then that's opened up your shots and your
uh
boots. And I mean, it's
Look at
disgusting, man.
Indiana. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not
It's
a
like,
big 4 vert guy. I like calling shots as more than just running 4 verts, but we try and keep it as simple as we can for quarterbacks. But yeah, I mean, we love formations. We love we've gotten into more unbalanced. Add in a different unbalanced here. Two or three unbalances. Every week, and then we just kind of build off of it. So if you look at kind of everything we do, it's all based off of power and counter, and then we kind of build off of that. So
yeah, whenever you can run the ball, I think it's really important, not just from an offensive perspective, but from a defensive perspective too. I can control the game. You can pick up. You're really probably if you're really good at running the football, you're good in short yardage situations. You're probably good at the goal line. It just helps your team. You can convert touchdowns down there in the, I just think that having the ability to do that in high school, you probably can sustain year after year. You don't have to rely on a 5-star quarterback to come in and throw it 35 times a game. You don't have to have the greatest receivers in the world or have 4 of them. You could probably get by with 2 really, really good ones. So
Mhm.
that kind of makes sense in terms of your success. And with your system, is it more plug and play or do you really adapt it to your personnel? Like talk about a little bit about maybe like a quarterback, so a pocket guy versus a runner. How do
Mhm.
you guys adapt?
Yeah, and I mean, I think the other thing, just going off running the ball, I think it creates toughness and physicality from your
Mhm.
team. But you hit it on the head. There's times where defense, first half they only get in 3 drives, and we've had such a good defense. It's 15 plays maybe, and
Yeah.
they're fresh going into the second half. So, um, yeah, just looking at it year by year, we would like to be more you know, under center if we can. We just haven't really. It's a different thing to do, but I'd love to do that. But yeah, you kind of just have to adjust to who you have.
Mhm.
We always want our quarterbacks to be able to run a little bit. Some can do it a little bit better than others. Others can't. But we're gonna start in 11 personnel. We're gonna install split zone, ISO, and then get into our fun stuff. But it depends on the line as well. There's times when we've had bigger linemen that aren't great pullers, but they're really good at zone, or we've added a little bit of duo as well, where they just like getting on double teams and going straight ahead. And so I think for coaches, like, you can have your what you want to do and what you believe you're going to be, but you're not the ones out there playing. And if you keep asking a guy to do something that they can't do, then you're putting that's malpractice on you. You've got to be able to adjust to what your kids can do well. And just because you can't go find a free agent, well, some people can, but you can't go find a free agent. You
Some
you got
people
to do.
definitely can.
Yeah, we've had our share of transfers, but no, you got to be able to do what they can
Yeah,
do.
exactly. Well,
And
heck,
so
that's almost something too to think about if you do get that kid that comes in the off season, like, hey man, you're almost at spring ball, and then you get this transfer to come in, and he's a dude, and he may not really fit what you've installed the last 2 months. So you might want to be able to pivot some to that. Like, hey, you just got a running quarterback in. Now what? So it's
Yeah.
probably good in your package to have, something for that guy that you don't just have to make up on the fly. And how have you kind of gone about that? Talk about the evolution. You're an offensive guy. Talk about maybe some things that you've done over the years to maybe try to solve some of those problems. Like, is it adding schemes? Is it adding? Just talk a little bit about your philosophy evolution.
Yeah. The main, principle of our offense was what I played with in high school. Scott Stein, who coached a lot in North Carolina and East Meck, Olympic, Sun Valley. I went to Sun Valley, and then so the defensive coordinator at Sun Valley, Tim Carson, went to Weddington and brought me on. So, the offense was what I played in middle school all the way through high school. But, we've added, I feel like, a lot of run game, and there's so many coaching things that you can look at now when, it's a fad thing. So, everybody follows Dan Casey, and it's, your Twitter algorithm, hopefully mine's just football plays and coaching, hires and fires. So, you just look at it, but we've added more duo. We've added a little bit heavier in the 12 personnel. And we've really added a lot of stuff in our counter. So, but you said, like, if we have a running quarterback, it's just tag, and everything won't be a quarterback read. There's times where if I'm not a big RPO guy either. If it's a pre-snap, if there's a guy off on the slot, we're going to throw a smoke out there, get me 5 yards, and make them. If they're going to load the box, but I'm more of a controlling guys. Like, hey, if we call a run, we need to run the ball and take that off the quarterback's hands. So, for us, it's more just a tag if we want the quarterback to be able to read it, or if it's a quarterback run, it's just a simple tag and all that. But
Coach, have you seen, I saw this the other day, I'm gonna share it real quick. Have you seen like the Q duo stuff? So
I
like
haven't.
the running back will fake duo, then he becomes the kick guy. Man, I think I saw someone post something with Central Michigan the other day. I was like,
Yeah,
dude, that is disgusting.
That's wild.
Like, man, but I drew it up real quick. I was like, man, I got to
yeah.
throw
No,
this up here.
that's interesting. Really
Yeah,
good.
it was just like they're going to run
Uh,
duo, and because there's a seventh fitter
I
and they don't
know
have
some
enough.
some like 80, some guys that's been coaching since the 1980s gonna say, "Coach, man, that's just quarterback ISO.
Yeah, that's what they're gonna say. So we've done it when
We've been doing it for decades."
yeah.
Yeah.
We've done it where we fake it to the back and he comes back across and becomes a third puller. I actually went up to Air Force
That's
and
kind of nasty. Yeah.
went to Air Force and watched Air Force do it. Now they did it from under center and the triple option look, but we take stuff that we like and say how can we fit that into what our scheme and what we
Sure.
do. So
Do you want to
that
go?
dude stuff is good.
Do you want to go more under center for the benefit of like play actions?
Yeah.
That's what I would like to do. Yeah.
We do. You just have to have a quarterback that's able to do it. But I'm still trying to figure out why boot game hardly ever works in high school. So you see it in,
I'm telling you, man, you're speaking to the choir.
I've quit trying. You can see it in the NFL. If I was an NFL coordinator, I would boot 70% of the time because it's always there. But
it worked for us in 18 at York, and I don't think it's really worked any other school.
We can't get it to work, and I think it's because, and now we've talked about this maybe several months ago. I think it's because defensive guys in high school, they're not selling out either way. I don't think they're reading guards. I don't think they're reading downhill like on the run. I think they're just kind of like
we're just we get a lot of people that try and squeeze and scrape. So you're like, oh, boot should be there, and then you try and run a boot, and he's straight up the field and hits you in the mouth. And that's something that, and we love our boot. Concepts out of it. It's just doing it. It just hasn't.
And them dang defensive ends could get more athletic, it seems like, too. So it's like they got dang receivers out there at the end.
Field,
so Coach, I want to kind of, and this is off script too, man, but I just like where the conversation going. When you're playing an opposing team, let's say like you're playing a good team, this isn't just kind of we're probably going to win this one, but like you're playing a well-known team. Let's say you're playing a really good team. When you are game planning offensively, what matters to you more? Is it what front are they running, or who are the guys on the field? What determines your main? Because plays are plays. You'll have tweaks and twists and tags, but like, what matters to you most when you're game planning an opponent that has good players?
Yeah. First thing is, I always will, ODK it the first time through. So just kind of take a peek and then I'll watch it through again. But, you gotta know if there's a game wrecker. That's the first thing. And then how are we gonna handle that? Are we gonna run away from them? Do we have to run right at them? What do we have to do with pass pro? All that stuff, especially in the front. But yeah, the front's huge for us, and how we want to attack it in different things. So we obviously look at the front and say, hey, they're giving us an odd front, this or that, or they're multiple, and try and get tendencies of it. But our kids have to be able to adjust if they get in and out of 4-man and 3-man fronts about, hey, our rules change in the run game and all that. But that's the biggest thing. And then, you have someone looking at the back end. What do they primarily do coverage wise? And then you look at, hey, in red zone, are they in more man? Are they in zone? Because everything, our struggle, I guess, has been red zone, and the field just gets condensed. And if you feel like you can't really run it, then it just gets hard, Um, but yeah, we definitely look at the front and figure out, hey, like, this is what they do. This is what they've shown. Where can we have success? But you got to know where game changers are, and how are you going to deal with those game wreckers.
And do you game plan certain field zones, like, to try to maybe? Because yeah, definitely, I remember at York in 18, we were such a big 11 personnel, gap, counter, buck sweep, bootleg, and then just a few concepts we were good at. When we got squeezed into the red zone, we just felt like, and they're giving us more cover zero, they're kinda outnumbers in the box. What are some things that you've seen over the last couple of years that have helped you in the red zone?
Yeah, I wish I was better at the red zone. So, when you get a lot of zero or more zero, you get people are shooting gaps and running gaps. So we've probably went less away from pulling in the red zone, and probably more, zone or duo. We have our little tight end throwback that we love. You obviously
Mhm.
have pick plays built in, man beaters. But I would say for us, it's if we're not getting what we call our monster package, where it's wildcat, 2 tight ends, 2 up backs, and a linebacker as a running back, and everybody knows we're coming right at you. Go do it. I'd say we've gotten away from a lot of the pulling it in the red zone,
Yeah.
just because you're going to get more zero or cover one, and you're going to have a free runner. So
Yeah,
We
and I
saw
think
that this year.
yeah.
We saw a team, they were a big power team, but as soon as they cross into like the fringe, the plus 30, they did not pull, not one time. It was
yeah,
straight duo anytime they wanted to run power. And it's almost like you want to tell the kid, listen, once you pass the plus 35, if you can't score, just fall down so we can have a better play
yeah,
options. Like, man,
yeah.
Yeah.
it's and honestly, like, for I've been on the defensive side for the last few years, and like, red zone for us is simple. Either we have the dudes to stop the run, or we don't have a red zone defense, and that's kind of what we're struggling with. It's like the teams we match up personnel wise, okay, but the teams where their O linemen just get after it, that's harder for us because everybody, like you said, then they come 13 personnel coming on. I'm like, oh boy, here we go. So, but no, that's kind of how it is
Well, they
for
create
us.
so many gaps, and I think that's just, part of, that's why teams get in monster packages. That's why we get in our Wildcat package, because we know we're gonna have to match freaking all the
Yeah.
guys that they're putting in the box, and we'd rather have that advantage, and then you can go unbalanced and so forth. But yeah, that makes sense on offense. Well, defensively, you know, because you guys are a certain way on offense of a controlled, power run game approach. Defensively, what's your philosophy on defense? Are you guys more conservative, trying to keep everything in front, knowing that you're gonna be able to control the game on offense, or is it more aggressive, trying to get turnovers?
I'd say we're both. Our big thing on defense is don't give up the big play and live to play another play. But there's times when Coach Hall is going to get in, six-man pressure and get after it. So, but we've really had some dudes on that side of the ball. Our front seven the last 2 or 3 years has just been, unbelievable. And in 18 and 19, it was really, really good. So, we feel like we're very multiple defensively. We base out of a 4-man front, but, we have a 5 technique. We call him the bandit, who can shift it, back into the outside linebacker stand-up guy, and we can get in our 3-man front really fast. So for us, it's bend don't break, but it's aggressive and it's chaotic. I think some coaches get mad because they feel like we're not very gap sound. You just see people shifting and moving and all that, but at the end of the day, you got to be gap sound and be able to stop the run like we've been able to, and not get caught out of your gap. So aggressive chaos is what I would call it. But they're really good at what they do. Coach Hall and the defensive staff is top notch, and they won a lot of games for us on that side of the ball.
And, it also helps if you have a D lineman who's good enough where he can play both gaps. That is, if you can play minus fit in the box and stop the run, you're going to be really good on defense. And that's kind of what I've taken, being on the offensive side and then going to defense is, if we can find some dudes in the box that can handle more than one gap, we're going to be really good. And actually, when I coached in the Queen City Bowl in 24, one of y'all's defensive linemen was there. I can't remember his name. He was number 70, I think. But, man, he was stout.
Yeah.
He was stout, man.
He's playing at the University of Toronto.
Is he?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
He was stout, man. I looked at him. I said, "Y'all 2 gap?" He said, "Oh, coach, we handled the OL." I was like, "Man, I love it." But no, coach, that's good. And I really like that. I have a question, really. You're the head coach and you call the offense, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so how does the weekend look for you as a head coach that calls the offense? Like, how do you manage making sure the defense is still on the right page, or they're execute kind of your vision for the game? What does that look like from a head coach that's also a coordinator?
Yeah. Saturdays we don't do anything. I need to get away from the kids. They need to get away from us, and there's kids doing everything else. So, Saturdays I don't bring them in for anything. We don't meet on Saturdays. I obviously get the film sent out, and Huddle's been awesome to where, I have it 20 minutes after our game, hopefully if the other coach is doing their job. So, I look at it Saturday morning. I do the stats Saturday morning when Huddle Assist gets done, and just peek at it. But, Saturday is kind of the day where we you just take care of what you need to do, as an adult and a human, get away from it a little bit. And then Sundays we'll come in and we'll meet. Offense meets at 11. I'm not a big staff meeting just to talk. They don't want to listen to me. They got other stuff to do. So I also don't feel like you have to be there for 6-8 hours. I think some of that can be overkill at times, and I'm not right or wrong, but that's just what we've done. So we'll meet. If I got something to say to the staff, or we need to talk about stuff, we'll meet. Defense will go in their room. Offense will wrap up, and then I'll go over and just talk to the defense, say what's your plan, what's your thoughts, all that stuff, and then I'll finish Sunday night throughout the Sunday of getting the offensive game plan together and stuff we talked about that we liked. And by Tuesday, half of it we scrapped, and if, or Wednesday, because we always say if you don't like it by Tuesday, just throw it out. So, but yeah, I have Coach Hall's been with me since I've been the head coach. He was one of my first hires, and he's been awesome. So, for us, we have full faith in what they do and what he does. So, I don't feel like I need to be hovering over him. I'm not a micromanager. We just trust him with what they do, but I'm always there if they need help or have any questions or any of that. I'm obviously there, but it's good when you have such a good offensive or defensive staff to where, for me, he can really focus, or I can really focus on just doing, worrying about the offense and making sure we're being successful as well.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I think that way, for you guys have been together so long and been so successful, I'm sure it's like, all right, we've been here before. We kind of know how to go about this the right way. You don't have to go in there and beat down the door and all that stuff. I remember, and Dustin can attest to this too, back in the York days in 2014, I'd left Marvin Ridge, came to York, and man, it was a totally different world. It was the first Saturday meeting that we had was 7 a.m. We didn't leave till 1. And then this is what's crazy. We'd all be in our cubicle just crunching like numbers and like and charting film, and nobody would say anything for like the first several hours. We'd
Yeah.
always like look around, like Knox and Grady Baggett are probably listening. We'd just look around and be like, man, we could be doing this at home, you know? And so that's kind of where we transition to now. It's like we have all that stuff done at home. All the coaches
Mhm.
have their assignment to get done by 1 o'clock, and then we'll meet Sunday afternoon to kind of put it together. But I think the days of Saturday morning meetings and bringing the kids in for like
Yeah.
2 hours. Now I do like bringing the kids in. In North Carolina, I don't think you can bring them in on Sunday that I'm
No, you
aware of.
can't. So we
Yeah,
just but there's so many kids taking college visits and
yeah,
SATs and
yeah.
all that. I
It's like
feel like
pulling teeth.
talking to coaches that still try and do it, they're like, it probably turns into more harm than it is
And then everybody gets
good.
frustrated, and it's
Yep.
like there's the commitment's not there, and
Yeah.
all that. But yeah,
But
yeah,
no,
that's
there's
cool.
some coaches I talked to, in the COVID time, they did the, coaches meetings through Zoom or
Yeah,
whatever, and
yeah,
some are still doing it,
yep.
but we come in, our parents feed us, if we win, they
That's
probably
cool.
bring in better food, so I guess that's part of the reason why we're still coming in, but, I just think, again, you don't have to overdo it, and
Mm-mm.
like I said, our kids get away for 2 days and go do what they need to do, and then Monday they come back and ready to roll, so.
Yeah,
And I think the longer you're in this game, the more efficient you become as a coach. And I think there's a lot of things I used to think were big deals on the weekends earlier in my coaching career that now I'm like, dude, that was such a waste of time. Like
yeah,
you're doing that to do that, and I'm going on my 12th year of coaching, man. I'm still technically a baby in this thing. And it's like, but there's just like Saturday meetings. I didn't like Saturday meetings from the time I started at a program. I was like, we could do this at home and let's meet on Sundays and
hmm
let's have all the data and everything and come talk about that versus let's meet in the building to do the
Yeah.
data to say we met in the building to do the data.
yeah.
And
If
The
you
that,
have
other
the
thing is,
staff that you want, they're gonna, come in with them watching film, and if not, then, you probably haven't hired the right guy, and you need to make a change, so.
This episode is brought to you by TeamBuilder, the industry standard when it comes to strength and conditioning software for high school programs. If you're a coach trying to manage multiple teams, large rosters, limited time, and still develop your athletes the right way, what separates TeamBuilder is it's built by coaches for coaches. It allows you to individualize training while still running an efficient, organized program, whether you have 20 students or you have 100 athletes in your weight room. If you want accountability, consistency, and a system that supports long-term athletic development, use the promo CoachSpeak for a free 30-day trial.
that's a good point. That's a
Very
good
good
point.
point.
If you have
Very
to
good point.
coach a whole lot, it might be time to move
Yeah, you
on.
might need to
Yeah.
rethink that, so.
There's one thing, talk about kids watching film and like how productive that may or may not be. Do you guys like require that of your guys? Do you like monitor? Because like I feel like, hey guys, if you watch film and then they go in there and they just let huddle roll for like 14 hours, it's like,
Yeah, it's always funny
you know,
when I check the huddle film time and it's
yeah,
one's like 7, 8 hours. I was like, "You wouldn't sleep with this on," but, or your dad's been watching on your
dad. No, that's what it is.
Definitely the
your
Dad,
dad.
dad's been
dad is
making
on there like,
your highlight film, so.
yes,
Coach ain't gonna be able to look at me and say, "Did you come to practice this week?" Because I'm gonna tell
Yeah.
him, "Sure did. I watched every day on the
every
huddle."
day.
No, we'll watch it. We're not long. High school kids, you guys know it's
hmm
keeping their attention span. So, we'll watch it Monday. Before practice. You know, most of the time I have some clips of the last game they need to see, and then a couple, showing of our opponent, and then we try and get the line in. Tuesday morning. Coach Hall watches film during their lunch for the defensive guys throughout the week, and Coach Smith, our quarterback coach, will watch it Monday after practice with the. So I kind of let the coaches do it. So um, with their positions. That way, they're not talking about a front with the receivers and they're sitting there like, what am I doing here? Well,
Yeah.
so,
Well, one of my
we'll watch it a little, but they watch it throughout. I still have teachers come
yeah.
complain to me that they're on huddle, but you got to teach the kids how to watch
Mm-hmm.
film the right way too.
Yeah.
They're ball followers. They're not looking at their individual matchups at times. They're not, looking at things. So, you kind of got to, hey, when you're watching this, you got to see this guy's doing this, or,
Yes.
this is what you get. So I feel like you're having to teach the kids how to watch film as well. Some too.
So this past year, Coach, I'm an AD at a charter school, and we get out of school at noon on Fridays. So my favorite part about this past year is like almost every Friday I'd text Jamie, who poor guy, he's teaching till 4:00. Hey man, you want lunch? And I'd go get lunch, and then I'd also like every other week I'd bring the linebackers in during lunch, and I'd buy them Chick-fil-A or whatever we're eating, but those weeks I was more either relaxed or stressed because when we went over the game plan, I was like, hey, what are we looking for here? Like there were some weeks, man, they had it. And then there's some weeks I'm like, God, I shouldn't have done that. Like, man, now I'm a little stressed because I don't know if they know about this one set or formation, but I think that's a great idea to also like get with your kids. Like if you can watch film at least 2 or 3 times during lunch, it's like, man, it's a little more even kill. It's not I'm in a meeting with coach. No, man, I'm eating lunch with coach. We can joke a little bit. And I think that's, if you're able to do it, I would love to implement that more often.
Yeah, no, that's something that they've enjoyed doing, and hey, I got to watch film with coach. Can I go to this lunch now and all that? So
But yeah, coach, let's dig into, maybe some things that can help coaches listen about, how to deal with maybe some conflict. So for us, when you're a championship team, I'm sure there's a lot of guys and a lot of coaches maybe that may have an opinion, or they may maybe kind of going against what you guys were teaching. But like, how do you handle, let's say, disagreement with like the staff?
yeah, good thing is that we a lot of the staff's been with me since I've been an assistant. We've been able to, keep a lot of our guys, the same. But I always just, hey, let's air it out. We're all adults, and come in, and I will listen to everybody. If you would give us offensively, if you give us an idea, we'll draw it up. I'm a visual guy, so I need to see it. And then I'll say, well, this is why I like it. This is why I don't. What if we did this way? But you always try and listen and respect because you hired them for a reason. So, you got to listen to them. But, for us at the end of the day, I got to feel comfortable calling it. And if you don't, then you can't call it, and that's something that I've had to learn as a young coach. When I was 26 and I got the job, there's older coaches that I didn't want to feel like I was letting them down or not listening to them. But you as a play caller have to feel comfortable and have conviction in what you're calling. So if it's something the game plan like that, we'll talk through it on Sunday, and like I said, we'll try it out. And if it's, hey, I actually do like that, then it's going in. If it's like, I didn't like it, it's not going to work, then you just can't call it. And again, I don't micromanage. I let our coaches coach. But if there's something where you see, coach not doing a drill you feel like they need to be doing, or not coaching that position group that's hard, I don't do it in front of the kids. And again, you don't have to be, hey, I need to see you in my, like, just walking back from the practice field in passing, just say, hey, like, our drill's got to be, this is what we're focusing on in the run game. I need you to really focus on that. And again, you hope that you hire good guys that trust you and believe that, hey, he's telling me that for a reason, not just for that. So really, I haven't had a ton of conflict just because you hire good people and people you like going to work with. It shouldn't be a ton of that, but I know there's always times where, a guy comes in and it's not what you expect and all that, and you got to either fix it or it's on you if you don't fix it as the head coach.
No, and that, I think that's great advice. It's understanding the reasoning, and like you said, if you're going to be a jerk about it, then you're probably not going about it the right way. But it's like
Right.
if you go about it the right way and say, hey man, like for example, defensively, like we really got to work on how we're playing defensive end technique against down blocks, because what we're doing right now, it isn't working. So we need to structure our group drills or indie drills to get better at that. And like you said, good hires, good coaches that don't have egos, they're like, 1000% coach, let's sit down, let's see what our problem is and see what fits the scheme and the call that we're making, versus coaches who may be like, well, don't worry, we're going to fix it. Like we'll handle it, And I think that's a lot, like you said, in hiring, but it also, as a head coach, it's your job. If we are having that issue or that problem, like we got to reel that in. Like we got to figure that out, because if you can't get on the board, because at the end of the day, the head coach has the vision for the program, the coordinators had the vision for each side of the ball. And if you aren't in alignment with what the head coach wants or if what the coordinators want, then you need to get off the ship, because they're the three that truly matter in setting direction for what's supposed to happen.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think that's a big piece of maybe sharing your vision with your guys, like, as a leader. Coach, talk a little bit about that with you. How do you have, like, a big meeting at the beginning and you share a vision, or is it more personal relationship type deal? Because it seems like you kind of have a really good knack for, like, speaking to the person, kind of in those moments, but explain your kind of philosophy on that and how you approach that.
Towards the whole team or just the staff
Yeah,
or?
just in general, how do you kinda share your vision with the staff?
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, I don't love coaches meetings for just to have them. Before our first, Sunday meeting, I'll obviously talk about it, or before spring ball, I'll say, hey, this is what I think we need to do. This is how we need to go about it. This is who we have coming in. Let's look at it. And then, that's kind of the big meeting, with the staff. And then a lot of it's just talking to them, whether we're on the bus loop, after school or phone call and talking to them personally. And then, you know, you do that in the spring. You kind of have a meeting about, hey, this is what we liked in the spring. This is what we need to do different in the summer. And then going through summer, we're just always talking to where it's more casual and informal and not a sit down meeting. And then, with the kids I always meet with the kids after the season, and I always JV varsity and one on one and say, are you playing next year? What's your thoughts? And let them air out anything they have. And I feel like that, it's important for those kids to have that time to just talk, and this is what I would need you to do. This is what I see you doing for us next year. This is where you can get better, talk about recruiting, all that stuff. And then, you kind of meet with them throughout after spring ball, like, hey, going into it in the summer, this is where you're at.
Hmm.
So, and they're in our class. I have them, I teach me and there's like 4 coaches in that first period class with planning periods and stuff. So where you're always talking to them and trying to get, just build relationships, because I think that's important. I don't want them to feel like they can't come to us about anything or talk to us about anything. And then as far as parents, we have one parent meeting, in August, and I kind of tell them this is how we do it. This is what happens, and go from there. Our parents have been awesome. Winning helps.
Yeah.
But there's always one or two. But in the last couple of years, actually, in the spring we've had a recruiting meeting because it's it's important.
Yeah.
And I always tell them, don't make your son's recruitment bigger than winning football games and enjoying their high school. And there's times when parents do that,
They
but
do.
they I don't understand recruiting right now. Every year it's been different.
Yeah.
For 2 weeks when the portal opened, I couldn't get anybody to call me back. It's high school kids, but if one of our former players was in the portal, my phone would be blowing up. So, it's a process and it's a year by year process. But I try and just give them what I feel like is going on with the recruiting right now and let them understand it. And, they don't like it. They don't like it, but that's how it is. I can tell any coach in the world that their kid's great and they should offer him, but I can't tell him you need to or offer him. That's just not how it works. So
And also, we just had Perry Parks on. He was telling us how even like smaller schools now have a GM. So he's like, when it comes down to recruiting, I might like these 3 kids, but I might get back and the GM goes, "Oh man, yeah, they're great, but they're not on this list, and we're going with one of these guys." It's like
It's
so.
more like free agency, and we just had a conversation with our team, just kind of the landscape of recruiting. It's like, you know, gone are the days of, like, offering 5 high school kids at one position. Like, it's like
Yeah.
now it's like you got a portal kid, you got a high school kid that's really, really good, and then or you might offer a bunch of them if you're a big school, but then none of them are committable because they're bored of, like, tight ends let's say is, like, 10 deep, and they're waiting for the guys to commit above you before they can allow you to commit. It's just it's crazy, man, like, just the whole thing, and hard to communicate that to parents, I'm sure.
yeah, it's
Coach,
a nasty world there. So
how
Mhm.
Coach, you said y'all had some decent players. How do you how do you coach the kids that are just like freak of nature, natural gift. Like, obviously there's some kids who have gotten to that point because of their work ethic, and there's some kids who just look up to have that ability. Let's say you have a really star kid who is a contender. He's a big part of why you win. What happens when he steps out of line? Like, how do you manage those kids? Because it's like you look at the NFL and they're managing a bunch of different personalities. How do you kind of do that at the high school level?
Yeah, it's hard. I think that's one of the harder things you have to do, early, we were fortunate where, like I said, at the beginning is, our best players are our hardest workers. And I think that kind of set the standard and the tone of who we are at Weddington and all that. But, you just got to be honest up front with them and say, hey, like, you're supposed to be this guy and you're not upholding your end of the bargain. And, I probably failed with that early failed with that at times, just going off and going ballistic on them. And some kids don't respond to that, but you have to find a way to get them and motivate them and just tell them you might can get away with it now, but at some point someone's going to be as good as you,
Yeah.
and when you leave this program, we want you to be the best that you can be and ready to go into that next level. And another huge compliment that we've had is that our kids are ready, college ready, whenever they get there. They're winning mat drills, they're winning the off season, they understand how to work. And if not, it's a different world. If you get there, we were done playing in December, and in January they're gone. And they get loved on by these college coaches that recruit you, but they get in that building, they ain't gonna be as nice anymore. And that's just the truth of it. You're signed, you're making money now in college. Like, it's go time for them. So, we try and just get to understand, like, you're going to step into it. And if it's not in college, it might be at the next level in the
Yeah.
NFL, where someone's going to be better or just as good as you. And if they learn and outwork you, you're going to get put behind.
And that's such a good angle to angle it to the kid. It's like, listen, you probably could show up every day at practice and hang out and probably still help us win every Friday night. But all the time you're taking off now is going to set you back at the next level or set you back at the next goal. And I think just hearing you say that, like, it's such a great optic to try to explain to them, like, listen, man, I know you're good. You're one of the best players, but it's like, you ain't gonna get away with this when you go to college. And I know that's what you want to do. So all the days you take off now is going to set you back that many days when you get there.
And
Great.
I'm sure you could probably go back and lean on former players you've had. Like, you talk about Will Shipley. It's like that guy still had to battle at Clemson, for reps at times. What was it Moffa? Who was the other one? Moffa?
Yeah, Moffa, Phil.
I mean, yeah, they kind of split reps, and Will Shipley was like all-American everything, the greatest ever. And I mean, but his work ethic allows him to play now at the NFL. So I'm sure. Have you ever had those guys come back and speak?
Yeah. Will's been awesome of coming back, and I think he talked to Aiden and Drew and TJ when they started really blowing up about the recruiting process. And just how Will was, he had a list of notes and he came in and hit everything. But when you hear it from a kid that went through that recruiting process, and I know it was still a little different from when he was getting recruited, so where it is now compared to just me talking about it, I think it was awesome. And, Malik Mustafa has came back and he was playing for the Niners, and Alec Mock played at Air Force for 4 years and had a tryout with the Broncos. But then he had to go do his Air Force stuff. But before he got shipped, he came back and actually coached with us, not this year, the year before. So,
That's awesome.
Those guys that are, highly recruited guys are now, and, talking to a kid that just went through 4 years at the Air Force and, was on, was on the practice, or almost made the practice squad, but was on, in camp with the NFL team, and so having those guys able to come back, and that's something that, that's what you try and build, and it's awesome for us, and I think it really helps our young kids understand that, and we've been fortunate for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Coach, man, this has been great. I think it's time. Jamie, you want to head to rapid fire? We'll just
I
spit
think
some
so.
questions out and see. Coach, I'm just going to ask, who's the favorite team that you've beat? I just want to know, like,
that's a good one.
What team have
Way to
you
get it
beat
going already
in high school that you're just like, man, I'm glad I beat those jokers? And it could have been because their talent was better or what, but just a team that you love to beat if you get a chance to.
Dutch fork was a big one, just 'cause, Tommy Knotts, and I guess we scheduled them the year that they struggled early, so, good scheduling by us, but, that was a big win for us. That was one that we'll remember, and, we've kinda had this off or rivalry now with Grimsley,
Mm,
every year in the playoffs, and so, getting them that one time, and they've gotten us 3 times, but,
mhm.
that was a good win for us, but, yeah,
Dutch Fort, man, that's a big one.
that was a good one.
He's won 9 out of the last 10.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
That's a big one, coach. That's a
That
big
that
one.
that that was probably one of my favorite ones.
Yeah, yeah, no, and it's also cool too because it's like the big North Carolina versus South Carolina battle. It's like,
Yeah,
okay, well, we'll go play Dutch Fort, you know what I mean? Like, and then
love
being able
that.
that's awesome, man. That's it.
Love it. Love it. Yeah, coach. So, how do you guys like, one, what do you think the hardest standard to maintain for your players? Like, what is the hardest thing for them to maintain?
Just showing up every day and being the same person.
Mm,
I think it's just and again, I struggle probably with it sometimes too, and, oh, it's the off season, it's the grind, you just wanna get back on the field, but understanding, like, the off season is as important, if not more than during the season, and just dealing with outside stuff, and these kids, like I said, they're 14 to 17-year-old and, coach's happiness and going home, not upset depends on teenage kids and what type of mood they are. So trying to get them to be the same person every day. And when you get on that practice field or when you get in that weight room, no matter what happens, that should be your outlet. For 2 hours, don't think about the C you made or your girlfriend mad at you or, you know, them not having pizza at lunch. Like for 2 hours, come in and focus or for an hour in the weight room. That's your time to just focus, be with the group, be with your team and build towards something special.
and I think coaches too have we have problems with that too, right? Like
Well, I
we're
definitely
also human, and it's like, man, I remember Coach Allen, he coached with us on staff, and he's like, "Now, Jamie, man, sometimes I just don't feel like doing nothing, but you know what? I got to give it my all today." That's what he'll say to me, man. He'll get me jacked up, but
Yeah, I tell the
he's been
kids
coaching for
sometimes.
45 years.
Yeah,
He's got the
I
most
tell the
energy in the room.
kids sometimes they gotta pick us up,
Yeah,
like
you set the
we're human,
temperature.
so, like
Yeah,
tomorrow, like coming back from, these days off of school, like, oh, we're on a 2-hour delay, so now I'm like, "Yeah, we couldn't have been out another day, but you know what? It's another day to get in there in a, short class period, but get in there and get better,"
yeah,
and that's something that, like you said, us coaches have to remember as well.
Yeah,
yeah,
and
yeah.
honestly, man, I know this is kinda risky, but it's like, there have been times with players, like, in my position group, I'll say, "Listen, guys, like, I didn't get any sleep last night, I don't feel good, and, like, today's a struggle for me, but, like, I want you to know I showed up because of y'all, like, and Imma still go out and give it everything I have, but just know, man, I'm sick right now, I don't feel good, and
Mhm.
I don't really wanna be here, but guess what? I'm gonna show you how you gotta push through," and it's like,
Here's one.
that's a
Here's one.
that's a fine line, man, but it's
Here's
like
one, man. Shout out to Grady Baggett. So we're at York circa 2014, and we're like dogging them in the summer, and it's just hot. It's all crazy, and he is just screaming out to the top of his lungs, "We do not feel sorry for you," like over and over and over.
I've said that
So
a few times,
yeah,
yeah.
and I'll bring that out, and then I'll tell him why I'm saying it, because, but it's funny.
Coach, when it comes down to offensive linemen, do you if you have a better player, and I guess we can go down the rabbit hole what that means. Are you gonna put him at tackle or are you gonna put him at guard? Where does your best
Mhm,
lineman go if you have one that's lesser?
Um, Honestly, it's where they're comfortable.
mm,
I know
mm,
that's a hard like, our best lineman right now, we moved him, going into his junior year, he's gonna be a senior to center, because we got beat by, you know, uh, Bryce Davis from Grimsley, who's at Duke now, or I think he's still there. Put him at nose guard in the second half, and they beat up on our 220-pound center who fought his balls off for, whatever. Second half, he just, at some point, physics is physics, so, but for us, I mean, we want guards that can pull, we want guards that can move, and we feel like we can just go short game to where if our tackle isn't as good, we can get the ball out, we can help with the chip, we can help with the back. So I guess after talking through it, I would rather be good in the middle, and just make sure you get after it and get movement in the middle, just because we don't do a ton of outside zone or any of that stuff. So.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point too for the defensive listeners is like, hey man, how many times do we actually assess the center's personnel, like how big the center is? Because you may be a 4 down front that plays with 2 eyes and 3s. You might want to shade the center this week if he's 210 pounds and he's going to struggle with anything run game. And I think that's a good point to bring up.
I think it's easier. Like it depends on what you run to offensively. I know we're kind of going down a tangent now, but like I wonder if it like matters like what you run. So if you're going to do a lot of drop back, if you're going to do a lot of intermediate game, like I feel like defensively it's easier to isolate a tackle. Obviously, there's no one on the outside of him, so you can maybe eliminate the opportunity for him to double, or you always have to slide to your weakest tackle, so you're going to isolate another guy. So it's like you can do. I mean, I just think some of that, but I'd rather have some kick-ass guards.
Yeah.
Like I think pulling and trapping, you get a nasty double. You can kind of get away with a more athletic tackle in some spots. Especially if you're going to be an interior, gap team. Sometimes an odd though, the tackles can be soloed. So like if you're going to try Momo and things like that. But yeah, I think that's a long one to get down. But
yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, man, this has been great, Coach, man. We truly appreciate it. And we follow what you do at Weddington, man. And, we know people that know you that speak very highly of you. Yep. And we definitely wanted to get you on. We know this will be a big episode for our listeners because I know there's a lot of guys within North Carolina and even South Carolina. It's like, man, I got to listen to that guy, Andy Capone, man, because he's doing something right. So yep. We're super thankful that you spent some time with us tonight.
Yeah, thank you, Coach.
I appreciate you having me on, and this was fun.
Hey, guys, don't forget to use our promo code CoachSpeak with our awesome partners. Ray Crowther, Team Builder Practice, R4 Football Systems, Pro Quick Draw, Dome Headwear, and Optimum Grading. We'll see y'all.
Thanks for tuning into the Coach Speak podcast. If you're interested in being a guest speaker on the show, we'd love to hear from you. Email us at coachspeakpodcast1@gmail.com. And if you have a question for our Q&A segment, don't forget to submit it through the form in the episode description. We appreciate your support, and we look forward to seeing you in the next episode.